Happy day, YouTube. My name is John, and this is my channel, The Intermancer. I have a confession to make. Up until this point, I had been really committed to doing all of my coding for the Gaia F program framework and all of my debugging online in front of everybody. But this live status update issue has been really vexing me. And so I spent some time offline working on it, and I worked through it. I got it fixed, and I just want to do an update here about what that involved. Because what happened was I was working with the coding agent, and it had introduced this experiment async method with this async annotation. And I wasn't familiar with this async annotation, and it said that if you just annotate a method with async, enable it in your system, then it does exactly that. It will run those methods asynchronously, and it'll do an execution cache or handler outside of the method and decorate the method and use and execute calls to that method asynchronously. Well, it turns out that the LLM didn't understand that annotation quite as well as it thought it did, because calls within a class don't respect that async. They don't have any way to decorate it. So what I had ended up doing was adding some more system outs and confirmed that the experiment was fully executing before it was returning the experiment ID to the UI. And so the UI had no way to look up the status update until the experiment had completed. Once I did that, I talked to the LLM. I asked the agent about this async, and it said, "You're absolutely right. It doesn't work that way." And so then it made a change that didn't even compile, or well, it compiled, but it didn't start up because there was a spring error. And then a couple more iterations, and it got this service provider. It added a service provider that basically, the service provider is a self-reference to where the class references itself but pretends it's an external object, and so it can call methods inside that external object using this asynchronous decoration. Now, I think I think part of my problem here is that this Claude Haiku isn't as good as I would like it to be. So I think going forward, I'm going to go back to using Sonnet 4.5, which I really like, and we'll see if that fixes some of my issues. At the beginning of my last video, I said that I had 3 problems I was working with. 1 was the live status updates, 2 was context drift, and 3 was the memory leak. Well, I fixed the live status updates. Those work now. I guess since I'm here, I'll go ahead and see about the context documents and see if there's any drift in those. Let me look at this agents MD file, because the coding agent uses agents MD, and I don't think I've updated it. Get workflow, environment. Java code style, guidelines, build commands, project structure. So let's go ahead and here under project structure, Describe the project features. AI context. Okay. Gen AI context. Organic classes. Describes the basic structure of organisms and how they consume data. Gen AI. Okay. Look at this. Here it's just hallucinating a file. There is no genetic operators.md file. So gen AI context. Oh, and there's no experiments. Experimentation. Basic genes. .md describes basic genes and their mutations. What does DesignMD do? I don't even remember this one. Okay, Gen AI context design MD Gen AI context describes the user interface. Okay, so now I have the context files. I've switched over to Sonnet. There been some changes to the code that were not reflected in the project context documents. Update experimentation. That hashtag didn't find it. Experimentation. To reflect changes to experiment controller. And the introduction of experiment service. Now this is new for me. Before I had been just using the LLMs conversationally to analyze the file and then pulling in those changes one by one. Using this coding agent now, it actually makes all the changes for me and commits everything to Git and does so much. But that's a whole new level of trust that I'm giving it. Okay. I'm reading the changes it's making, or the summary of the changes it's making. Okay. All right. Added a description of the context documents. All right, with that, at 13 minutes and 24 seconds, I believe I will end the video here. So next time, I will come back to live coding because we need to find this memory leak. And I've got some ideas of how I'm going to work with that. Thank you for your time.